Reports are saying there's a TV deal done with All Elite Wrestling. Should WWE be worried? We'll let you know next on the Squared Circle Psychobabble. Hello and welcome to the Squared Circle Psychobabble. My name is Michael Valenti. This is Ralph Valenti, and tonight we are talking about the big news that was reported this week that All Elite Wrestling do have a TV deal with TBS, TNT, and Turner Sports. They're going to be on TV in October, according to these reports. Is this a worry for WWE? Before we get to that discussion, make sure you hit subscribe and that bell for notifications as we're trying to hit 5,000 YouTube subscribers before All Elite Wrestling, double or nothing. So, Ralph, right after WrestleMania, we get the report from the Fight article and basically saying that in mid-May, there's going to be upfronts for Turner Sports. That is when they pitch their fall season to the advertisers, and included in that will be All Elite Wrestling. Now, this comes also after WWE saw their lowest ratings ever on a Raw after Mania. Should WWE be worried?
In short, I'm going to say no, but I think they should pay very close attention to what AEW is doing. So, ever since the inception and the announcement of AEW, I think that one of the things like we've always talked about is they've said that they are not going to be a legitimate competition or try to compete with the WWE. I have said from since this was announced that they are going to be competing with the WWE. Reason being is this is them stepping into WWE's market. So you are now trying to attract not only professionals, meaning wrestlers or backstage talent, fans. You're trying to attract those people away from the WWE product so they can now watch your product. Is there room for both of them? Of course there is, but I think you kind of got an idea as to how WWE and some of the people within the WWE organization feel about the presence of AEW. Look no further than the Hall of Fame. Some of the comments that were made to Billy Gunn and some of the comments that were made during the speech given by DX by none other than Triple H would certainly lead you to believe that they at least have some type of opinion about AEW and they are at least paying attention to what's going on.
Yeah, I totally agree there. Would I say that they're worried? I actually think they will be worried because this is the first time in 20 years that there's some legitimate competition to WWE. As far as a cable and television perspective, it's going to take a while for them to really match up ratings wise, I believe.
Yep.
But the fact that if this report from the Fight article is true and it's going to be on TBS and it's going to be on Tuesday nights where, SmackDown's moving to go to Fridays and it's happening the same week as the move to Friday, that's huge. That is absolutely
huge. It's definitely huge.
There's more details that need to be ironed out, I think, before people really get to say that this is in fact competition. This is in fact a war. If this deal is, first off, actually done, two, what network of Turner that it's going to have, because there's a lot of networks that Warner Media Group, who actually owns the Turner Sports umbrella, they own a lot of networks. Some of them, obviously, TBS, TNT, but it's also True TV, HBO. So where does this actually fall into play? Mm-hmm. Where are they going to end up?
Yep.
If it's TBS, then yes, this is a home run. It's WCW all over again. And,
which could be good and bad.
Which could be good and bad. Now, obviously, I keep saying because I work in television, I know the trends. Everything's moving away from cable and into streaming and on demand. WWE has the WWE Network since 2014. Not exactly what they envisioned when they first launched it, but they still have 2 million subscribers to it. And people that are subscribed to it watch it mainly for two reasons. One, the pay-per-views that are included, and two, the on-demand product.
Yes.
What is AEW going to offer to counteract that?
I think the biggest thing that AEW is going to offer is a much different, much fresher product than what you're seeing with the WWE. I think the biggest knock on WWE right now is that it's stale. One of the things that I've said about WWE, especially in recent years, is there's far too much content. That the creative is a little lackluster. That the storylines don't necessarily follow a linear path.
Well, did you hear the news earlier this week as well? That WWE is looking for a continuity supervisor.
Okay.
So basically,
fair enough.
So they're trying to make things a little fresher and trying to make things, long-term booking actually make sense.
Okay.
So that's a start.
So here's my argument with the WWE. I think WWE has too much content. I think that they have too much television time, and I think that does not bode well for them based on the cultural and societal norms that we're kind of facing today. We live very much in a culture and a society where I call it like the in-demand culture, where if you want to order something off Amazon, you can get that shipped to your house probably the next day. If you want to go and get McDonald's, you don't have to leave your driveway. You can have Grubhub or somebody deliver it to your front door. If you want to watch Cobra Kai Season 2, you can binge watch, beginning to end, in a 2-day period, Cobra Kai Season 2. Now, what does that mean for the WWE? Like I've said, the shrinking attention span, given the fact that they have a lot of content and that they want you to invest a lot of time in their product and follow their storylines, as bad or as good as they may be, for an extended period of time, does not bode well for them. I think given the fact that people don't have the attention span nor the patience to actually see a full storyline develop, doesn't bode well for them.
Well, I disagree to an extent there.
Okay.
I think there's some people that still like the full long-term storyline. Like, let's look at Kofi Kingston. Kofi Kingston, that was a 2-month build, maybe 2.5-month build that paid off at WrestleMania. And people were invested into that.
I agree, but how many people were griping where he didn't, the very first time he got the opportunity to wrestle for the championship, people were already ready to shred WWE because they didn't put the belt on him. And that continued every single match he would have where he was in contention for the title. Now,
that helped the story, though.
I agree 100%, but I'm just saying you will get people who don't necessarily have the patience to follow that throughout its entirety. I mean, look at WWE is in a position where they have to do things like we saw on Monday night, where they did the bait and switch, and I know why they did it. I don't agree why they did it, and I was as pissed off as anybody else. But when you have to go from pay-per-view to pay-per-view, when you have a pay-per-view every week and you have to let these storylines develop, they have to do things like that. They cannot deliver certain big moments every single week on Monday Night Raw, or SmackDown for that matter, and that doesn't bode well for them. It works in AEW's favor or any of these other companies like New Japan Pro Wrestling where you want to put on a big match like Okada versus Omega because they have limited interaction. So by the time you get to that point where they actually have the match, the people are still going to be invested in it. It's still going to feel fresh. That's why NXT works. It's got 1 hour of television and you get to take over every, 4 months?
Basically, yeah.
So they don't have overexposure to like a feud like Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa.
Right.
So it feels fresh when you get to those points.
But here's the other side of the coin. WWE has gotten to a point where they're just too big for their own good. Where, part of the reason people, or one of the things that fans want fixed is to have it go back to 2 hours.
Yes.
That's never going to happen because it's not WWE's decision to keep it 3 hours. It's the USA Network that want it 3 hours long.
Right.
And WWE has to fill the 3 hours that USA is giving them. Mm-hmm. And what's WWE going to say? No, we don't want the extra hour of ad revenue for you giving us.
Of course.
And the same thing with SmackDown. There was the rumor saying that they could do 3 hours of SmackDown where 2 go on Fox and the third one goes on Fox Sports 1.
Yep.
Same thing. It's all advertising money. The on-demand stuff, you talk about we're in the in-demand society. WWE, I've said this once and I'll say it again. They're one of the top subscribed channels on YouTube with I think they're 8th or 7th most subscribed channels. So people are watching all over the world. And, they always put the graphics up of how they're the most social thing on social media where, despite everybody watching the NBA or NCAA championship, everybody on social media was talking about Raw after Mania.
Yeah.
So that's where, like I say, like the ratings don't necessarily play a big part like people make it out to be.
Yeah.
So what does All Elite Wrestling have to counter out with this? The streaming is going to be, I think, the biggest part of this TV deal. Sure, you could get on TBS and TNT, but people more and more are cutting the cord and finding other ways to watch TV.
Right.
Now, when I did my quick little news update on Wednesday, someone in the comment section brought this out, and I didn't even realize this until that person brought it up. So whoever made that comment, thank you for bringing it up. You have Bleacher Report Live, which has live content and on-demand content on there. And let's not forget, too, that Warner Media Group owns HBO. So that's where you have HBO Now and HBO Go. If the pay-per-views or even their weekly programming get put on demand there, that's going to be huge for All Elite Wrestling.
And I think we saw something similar with boxing where I think somebody probably knows this better than I do, but they moved away from Showtime and they did something similar like that. And I know UFC did something as well where now you can't actually purchase a UFC pay-per-view. You have to subscribe to ESPN Plus and then you have to, go through that to get the pay-per-view. So are certain things shifting and changing? Yes, of course they are. What can AEW do kind of compete and remain fresh? I think the most important thing, like I said, something they can do opposite of WWE is limit the amount of content. Right now, AEW is in a unique position where they have a lot of young talent and they have a lot of big names outside of the WWE. They're attracting some fans, whether they're disgruntled fans from WWE or just new fans altogether. They feel fresh because they are not in a position where they can expose themselves. And what I mean by that is it's easy to kind of do the things that they're doing. Not that it's easy, but it's easier to do what they're doing, easier than it is to do what WWE has to do on a week-to-week basis. So WWE is a position where they have to produce weekly content, whether it's Raw, SmackDown, NXT, whatever it is, and it has to remain relevant, and it has to be fresh, and it has to be enough content, and it has to be compelling to the point where people tune in and watch. AEW does not have to do that right now. They don't have a weekly TV show, at least not yet. They've never produced anything. They haven't put on a pay-per-view. So right now, all they really are is just a company within the wrestling industry that has a little bit of buzz. When they start producing weekly content, they have to make sure they limit that to maybe an hour at first. They have to make sure that they don't grow too fast, because what we see right now with WWE, in my opinion, is too much content and too many people on their roster there, and they don't really know what to do with it. They don't know how to interact, or they don't know how to engage the fans so that way they remain captivated throughout the shows and the months and the weeks.
Right. Well, I shouldn't say that All Elite Wrestling aren't doing anything on a weekly basis right now. They're still doing Being the Elite, and they're still doing the Road to Double or Nothing on a weekly basis.
I think we can both agree that is probably easier than what WWE is facing.
Yes, I totally agree with you there. But with Being the Elite, they are still finding ways to further storylines in their 20-minute video and their 10-minute Road to Double or Nothing than what WWE sometimes can do in 3 hours. So it's going to be harder to fill 2 hours than 20 minutes on YouTube. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like these guys haven't done it before. They did All In, and All In was a good show.
Again,
but that was a one-off show. I understand that.
Exactly.
But you're also talking about Cody Rhodes, who is the son of Dusty Rhodes, arguably one of the best behind the scenes, one of the best minds in wrestling history. They just signed Jim Ross. A lot of people don't like him now in commentary since he's been in New Japan Pro Wrestling, but you're still getting arguably the best mind in wrestling.
And there's also been no indication that he's going to be a commentator for them. So
he wants to be.
He wants to be, but I mean, they never actually officially said, as far as I understand, that he was going to play a commentary.
Well, the official press release said senior advisor, but then underneath that it said the largest contract in commentary history. And when they had him on the Road to Double or Nothing, he said that he's at least doing Double or Nothing.
Yeah.
After that, I'm not sure, but it's Jim Ross.
Yeah, a lot of people are judging him based on his time in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and by his admission, that wasn't his best work because he wasn't as acclimated to that product at the time.
Right.
If he's fully invested and motivated in something like AEW, which everything leads us to believe he's going to be because he seems hungry and he wants to get back into the wrestling industry, there's nothing that leads me to believe he wouldn't be successful in that role on commentary.
Right. That there, I think, could be the biggest signing AEW has in their early start as a wrestling company is Jim Ross, because take it from someone that, with a TV background and went to school for, radio and television. I personally would rather watch a 5-star match with awesome commentary than a 10-star match with crappy commentary.
Yeah. Commentary definitely helps establish the story that the wrestlers are trying to tell in the ring.
Exactly.
And there's no one that has ever done it better than Jim Ross.
Right.
In the history of professional wrestling.
Absolutely. So with that said, we have Double or Nothing in a month and a half.
Mm-hmm.
If this is true with the report, we still have another 6 months before we actually get All Elite Wrestling on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
People just want it now. It's just...
Well, they certainly do. And that's one of the things, like I said, that WWE, they don't necessarily have to be concerned, but they should be at least paying attention to that.
Yes, and I think they are.
I think they are too, but I mean, one of the biggest indicators that AEW stands a legitimate chance to compete with WWE, look at what happened on Monday Night Raw in the main event, right? You had the fans legitimately chanting during your main event, AEW.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's not a telltale side of Vince McMahon and the WWE, that AEW can be legitimate competition to them, I don't really know what is. And then, to your point about the ratings, granted, I understand all the reasons why ratings don't matter as much as they previously had in the past. But look at what the product WWE is presenting. Look at WrestleMania, right? Just from a strictly from the position of looking at the product itself. Yeah. So 7.5 hours, when we're in a society now where a sport like baseball, they're trying to speed up the sport because the knock on it is it's just too slow. Back to my point about people's attention span. The biggest thing coming out of WrestleMania wasn't Becky Lynch. Obviously, people were talking about the botch, but it was supposed to be revolving around Becky Lynch winning the title. This big moment where women were main eventing WrestleMania, and the one thing that everybody had to say was how long WrestleMania was. And now you want people to tune in to Monday Night Raw after a 7.5 hour pay-per-view. It's just people were exhausted. They're not following suit with other sports like the UFC and baseball and all these other things where they're trying to speed things up to fit the wants and needs of society. They're going the opposite. They want to potentially make SmackDown 3 hours. WrestleMania 7.5 hours. You want to give the people what they want. I'd be fine with WrestleMania being 4 hours, have however many matches it needs to be, and have them be meaningful with really good storylines than a 7.5 hour saga that just leaves you exhausted at 12:30 in the morning.
So quickly wrapping this up, you bring up WrestleMania and what, some changes they could do.
Yep.
Quickly, what changes can they do between now and WrestleMania 36 that can prevent the casual fans from slowly leaving and going to AEW?
I would suggest, and I don't know if you want to consider it seasons, but giving specific wrestlers extended periods of time off. Look at when Sami Zayn came back on Monday Night Raw, how fresh it felt. If you remember, right before he left, he may have been one of the more stale guys in wrestling in the WWE.
Well, because he was with the stale Bobby Lashley in his last storyline.
Regardless, I mean, between him and Kevin Owens, and it seems like since Kevin Owens' return, I mean, he hasn't been white hot or red hot, but he's at least been entertaining. Sami Zayn came out, he cut that great promo. So a little bit of time away from wrestling sometimes serves the wrestler good because it gives the fans a break from their characters. I think sometimes they should consider doing that, even if it's like 3 months off. I mean, look at Cena. Before Cena took his little sabbatical or for his extended leave, it was always he came out to the Cena sucks, and now when the match was announced that Corbin was going to wrestle Kurt, they were chanting, "We want Cena." He came out at WrestleMania and he had one of the best moments of the night. So it just goes to show you what a little bit of time and a little bit of a break can do for a guy's character.
Well, I think they're slowly doing that. When they're renewing these contracts with some of these guys, I think part of their contracts are including limited dates. We're seeing that with Randy Orton. AJ Styles, I believe his contract is limited dates. Daniel Bryan's is limited dates. We all know Brock Lesnar has limited dates.
So, yeah, of course.
So they're slowly but surely doing that. I don't think there should be an off season. I think you can definitely limit the house shows. That's one, because they're not the moneymaker that they used to be, and obviously not many people are not many people are going to Raws or SmackDowns, let alone house shows that aren't necessarily going to break any news. I think also the fact that it's moving to Friday, SmackDown is moving to Friday. What you could do, and I believe Sean Ross Sapp Fightful brought this up, and I thought it was a great idea. What you could do is the SmackDown roster can have a show Friday, do a house show Saturday, have a house show Sunday, and then they're off Monday through Thursday. And then Raw, they have their house show on Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Right.
And then if you have a situation where a Raw guy gets injured, you could take a SmackDown guy, borrow them because they're going to be close in the weekend, and just have them, carry over onto Monday. Right. And you don't have that situation where they have a Raw house show during a SmackDown taping or vice versa. Yeah. I think that's a great idea. Obviously, less house shows will definitely help.
Yep.
The other thing I would do is, you can't get rid of pay-per-views, but I think they started doing this with Fastlane and Elimination Chamber, but those ones that are the B pay-per-views, just make them shorter.
I agree. I agree 100%.
It's not everybody has to be on the card. And that's the other thing they got to change is this whole everybody's got to be on the card philosophy.
Doesn't do anybody any favors.
Back when WrestleMania started, you were on the card because you deserved it and because people want to see you, not because you're employed or independently contracted and we have to get you on the card for royalty purposes or whatever the reason may be. Excuse me. I think they have to do that, and if it means that guys have to be sent to future endeavors, so be it. But I think they can find other work elsewhere.
Especially now
with New Japan and Ring of Honor, Impact,
MLW,
AEW. I mean, look,
AAA.
Look, if Enzo Amore can get a contract somewhere, anybody can get a contract somewhere.
I want to make a quick point about that to go off topic for about 2 minutes. So I heard a lot of people shitting on the whole Enzo Cass segment, if you want to call it a segment.
At the Supercard.
Now, there were a few things that were discussed over the weekend, one of them being obviously the unfortunate situation with Bret Hart. Obviously the botched pin, the length of WrestleMania. But one of the biggest things that people talked about was the situation with Enzo and Cass, and if it was a shoot worked. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the whole point of doing things like that is so you can get attention and that you can be talked about. So regardless of if you like Enzo or hate Enzo or like Big Cass or don't, they got themselves talked about. They got their name out there. That's the point. Getting yourself over, getting yourself heat, getting yourself cheered or booed or whatever. Love them or hate them, they made an impact at least on that one night. So that little stunt that they pulled, I thought it was successful.
And for future purposes, he is now known as Cass XL.
Yeah. And Enzo.
Nzo, and
anyway,
Cass XL.
So, shifting back.
So shifting back, final thought, AEW by WrestleMania 36. Are we seeing close enough to where the ratings are going to be like, all right?
So,
because I think that first month, I would say if they get to 750,000, that's good. That's a good start.
Yeah.
If they get to that, it's a good start. Now, being on TBS and TNT, they might not like it so much, but this is the wrestling industry, and it's not as strong as it was last time TNT aired wrestling. So if they're able to pull 750,000, I think that's a good start. And they can obviously build from there. But if it's where you're starting to get into Impact Wrestling ratings, that's obviously panic button early. But
yeah, and I'm going to say that I think that it'll be good. It'll be a good product. It'll be a fresh product. We'll have to see if they can remain consistent and keep the product compelling. I think that they'll be able to compete with the likes of NXT. I don't know if they'll be able to compete with like the ratings from a rating perspective of Monday Night Raw or SmackDown. The one thing that I will say in closing on this topic is if for all those people that want to talk about how bad WWE is doing and how poor their product is and this and that, just look at the amount of money that in the United States, the success of a company is pretty much based on the amount of money that you make. WWE, in terms of its revenue in 2018, was able to produce $930 million in revenue. That is the most that it's ever produced, I think, ever. So for all those people that want to talk about how bad the product is, always remember that Vince McMahon is the brainchild behind this and that he's a very smart businessman. So if he has to create a deal with Fox or he has to go to Saudi Arabia, that is creating cash, and cash is king in the United States. Ultimately, that's what's going to win you, whatever you want to call that, your Monday Night War, your ratings war, this and that. Is WWE as good as product as it has been in the past? No. But is AEW just going to automatically come out and compete at that level? No, I'm sorry. It's just not going to. They may produce a better product, but, it's just not going to compete at that level. Not right out of the gate, at least.
Right. Let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Share this all over social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast. Subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications as we're trying to hit 5,000 YouTube subscribers before All Elite Wrestling, Double or Nothing. For Ralph Valenti, my name is Michael Valenti, and thank you for watching the Squared Circle Psychobabble.